racism is a total global system that operates in economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, health, and war.
What's up, family? Welcome to the series premiere of Cress Lessons. I will be your host, Prof. H. Whether you have been referred to this channel or you stumbled on it on YouTube by accident, I just want to thank you for watching. Please take the time and like and subscribe, because it's really important that we share this information with as many people as possible. Right now, things are topsy-turvy in this world, and a lot of racial tension, a lot of economic tension, a lot of healthcare tension, and we just need context for all of this. Right now, I'm hearing a lot of people question, why is this happening? Why are people running into the United States Capitol? Why are so many? Listen, we know why. We know why. We say all of this, a lot of the pathologies that affect Black and brown people are due to racism. But what I'm hearing a lot is, what is racism? Why is racism? Where is racism? So this channel was conceived with the idea of having some real conversations about race, about racism, but to do it intellectually and to analyze things from the perspective of one of our elders, Dr. Francis Cress-Welsing. So in a nutshell, Cress Lessons will use the theories of Dr. Welsing, and we want that to help contextualize race and ethnicity. And we want to do that from a historical lens. And we want to explore yesterday, we want to explore today, and we want to explore tomorrow. And we're going to use her work to do that. And the work that we will be using mostly is this, the ISIS papers. Now, the ISIS papers are a collection of essays and writings that Dr. Welsing wrote. And before we get into the sources, we talk about her writings and her lectures. What I want to do is I want to talk a little bit about who she is. But before I do that, I just want to make this kind of general statement about this channel and the videos that we'll be putting out. First and foremost, you're not going to hear me scream and yell, and I'll try not to cuss, but we'll see. No promises on that one. But the purpose is not to stir the pot. The purpose is to get you thinking and analyzing about why things are the way that they are. I'm not going to throw out my opinions. I will perhaps at times have some editorials where I try to synthesize all the things that we see and propose questions for us to discuss. You can always put your agreements or disagreements in the chat, and on the next set of videos, I'll address those things. But again, this is not to point the finger and criticize people. I know there are a lot of other authors and activists on YouTube, and they have some very aggressive ideas, and I do as well. But the way that I'm going to share those ideas is going to be from an analysis perspective. So with that, let's talk a little bit about Dr. Welsing. So Francis Cress-Welsing, I'm going to say was, but she is because she lives on, but she was a psychiatrist. She was a medical doctor. She passed away in 2018. But she was an author and a lecturer. And if you've heard of her, you may have heard of her through her work. So she authored the Cress theory of color confrontation and racism. And that was compiled in the book that I just showed you, the ISIS papers, The Keys to the Colors. She has 100+ hours of speeches and theories of race and white supremacy. A lot of them are on YouTube. I'm going to, every time I find a new one, I will throw it in the chat. If I am streaming live, if I'm not streaming live, then I will make sure that I put it in the info section of our YouTube video. And what makes Dr. Welsing so different from a lot of her peers is her history in medicine, her ability to look at things from a scientific lens. So her scholarship specifically was devoted to decoding white supremacy. And the way that she crafted this for us was to look at white supremacy and racism from a scientific perspective. And her idea was simply based on her observations that white supremacy was a reaction to the fear of genetic annihilation that white people have to non-white people. And she felt that racism in its inception, the way that we see it now, was a product of colonialism and imperialism. So that time, centuries ago, when Europeans left Europe and they went to Asia and they went to Africa and they came to the Americas, well, what we call as the Americas, and what we call the Caribbean. And everywhere they went, they began to see people with melanin, people who did not look like them. Different shades of black or brown or red or yellow. And pretty soon they realized that if they procreated and had children with these women, that their own genetics would not survive. That what was almost always the case is that the offspring were shades of black, shades of brown, shades of red, and shades of yellow. And that created this fear of genetic annihilation. And as the social structures began to grow from these ideas, this fear of genetic annihilation, then that became the #1 focus of white supremacy, to save their own species from a genetic perspective and from a social perspective. And you don't have to take her word for it. You can actually read some of these ideas in the white supremacist propaganda. We hear them talk about saving our race, race mixing, talking about we're losing our way of life. Even as recent as the presidency of Donald Trump, we heard a lot of that. The American carnage will end. This idea of our society is now on a downward slope because of, he never said integration, but it was definitely immigration. It was definitely racial tension around his presidency. And it's not just in America, it's all over. As the intro says, racism is a system. It's a global system, and it's old, and it's been perfected. But it just does not mean, based on our elders' words, that we can't overcome it. We just have to analyze it. It's like a chess game. We have to know the opponent that we're playing, and we have to develop strategies. Well, first we have to understand the game. And then once we understand the game, we have to develop strategies so that we'll be successful in it. So with that said, Dr. Welsing, she created this theory. A lot of her theory was also, I won't say developed, but it was inspired by the work of Neely Fuller. And Neely Fuller's quote that you saw in the beginning of this video in the intro really encapsulates that if you don't understand racism or white supremacy, everything else is going to flip and confuse you, right? You're not going to understand why people are doing what they're doing. You're not going to understand Charlottesville. You're not going to understand the Capitol insurrection. You're not going to understand white supremacists running up in synagogues and shooting up. You're not going to understand what happened in South Carolina. You're going to be confused. You're going to be looking at all of these world events, and you're going to try to figure out and make some sense. But if you can accept this idea that racism and white supremacy is a product of the fear of genetic annihilation, the fear of social annihilation, then everything else makes sense. So in these videos, I will be looking at current events and trying to frame them within the idea of that. And this is really important. So there are 10 big, we call them human or people activity, right? Dr. Welsing talks about that, and Neely Fuller really flushed that out. And, you know, we talk about education, we talk about politics, we talk about health, we talk about sex, we talk about war, we talk about politics, we talk about law, we talk about all of these entertainment, all of these things that we as people, how we interact with each other, that we as people ingest, they all have been affected by racism. I would maintain that they were created with racism in mind. A brilliant writer, I've never had a chance to meet him, but I hope to at one point, Ta-Nehisi Coates talks about how race is a product of racism, not the other way around. So when Columbus came to Quisquire, when he came to Hispaniola, and he saw all of those brown people, those red, brownish people, the first thing he thought of was, how can I take advantage of these people so that I can steal what they have? So I'm going to write a letter back to the Queen, and I'm going to talk about how these people are actually not as sophisticated as us. They don't understand what we understand. So I'm going to take advantage of them. I'm going to create the idea of race and racial differences to justify my racism, to justify this idea I have. And there's a connection between the economics piece of it and the idea of white genetic survival piece of it, right? And we'll explore that. So throughout these lessons, throughout these videos, I, at times, will look at multiple institutions, and we'll develop some idea based on what's happening in the world. A lot of times I'll just look at one. Sometimes I'll have guests that will join the discussion. But overall, this idea is for us to analyze racism and how it plays out in 2021 and beyond. So as I make this video, we are celebrating Dr. King's birthday, which was Friday, January 15th, and then the holiday is celebrated on the 18th. This is also the week of the inauguration of Joe Biden. As I record this video, the world hasn't blown up. I know that there are a lot of conspiracy theories out there about what's going to happen next. And then you have the conversations about nationalism versus globalism. We're going to touch on all of those things over the course of the next month or so, because I think they have direct connection with what we're talking about. And if Dr. Welsing was alive right now, she would definitely have something to say about it. So while I can't invoke her spirit, I can get really familiar with the work and try to share what I've learned about the work. So Prof H, right here, I'm going to show you a few things before I sign off on this first video. And the first thing I want to show you is a little piece, a little snippet of one of Dr. Welling's lectures, where she can kind of frame it better than me. So let's take a look at that right now.
So let's go back. I thought I had an eraser. Oh, here it is. Because I'm giving this with a little humor, but all of this is serious. All of this is very, very serious, because we're talking about what exactly is the nature of the war that is being waged against us that we haven't understood clearly to date. But we are moving on understanding. If we understand the importance of the male genitalia, black male genitalia, as being viewed as that which can cause white genetic annihilation, we will understand the importance of the gun. Police officers. If we look at the front view of male genitalia, it looks like this. The lateral view looks like this. Just think about the lateral view for people who are far away. If you turn that around 90 degrees, what do you have? A gun. A gun. Guns are the most important thing in the white supremacy system and culture. Because the white brain computer says he has weapon, can annihilate me. Must create weapon, can do same thing. In other words, the white genetic material is recessive. It cannot cause black genetic annihilation. But the white brain computer came up with gun, can make gun. And what do they call the gun? The great equalizer. See, these terms are not idle expressions. We treat them as idle expressions, but they come from the subconscious, because the problem, the fear of white genetic annihilation is not talked about overtly. In other words, you don't hear big discussions on TV, we are genetic recessive and we're afraid of white genetic annihilation. You don't hear that being discussed. You just hear everybody needs a gun. 200 million guns in the hands of people in this area of the world, and they're not just in the hands, or mostly in the hands, of people who are classified as black or otherwise non-white. So the great equalizer. And from that awareness comes the term justifiable homicide. Justifiable homicide, somebody might say, well, the definition of that is when you have to shoot somebody. The term comes from people who are in uniform in the white supremacy system and culture, who classify themselves as white, who see a black man and say, I thought he had a weapon. He does.
That shit is deep. I knew I said I wouldn't cuss, but that shit is deep. So without like really blowing up, I hope that tickled your pickle a little bit. I hope that got your brain racing, thinking about these ideas. So any piece of video that I show, understand that it comes from a public source. So Vimeo or YouTube, I want to make this disclaimer right now. I don't own any of it. So if I get it, it's because I've seen it somewhere and I'm broadcasting. So if you're looking to throw a suit out at me, I am not claiming to own any of these videos, and I'm not selling it or trying to make any dough. I'm just trying to use it as an educational resource. With that said, so the elder Dr. Welsing kind of laid it out plain. She laid it out plain. She talked about the guns in our society. Right now, I mean, it couldn't be more relevant. In America, right now, in 2021, there is not a gun shortage, an ammunition shortage. There is an ammunition shortage, and the reason is because after 8 years of Obama, the white supremacy system has been collecting ammunition, because somewhere in that brain computer, the idea of trying to make sure that there is an equalizer for the change in demographics, for the change in society, so that if we need to run up in a state capitol in Michigan, we have the ammunition to do that. If we desire to kidnap a lawmaker or an executive position in state or federal government, we have the ammunition. We can take on the military if we so choose. That is the system. Now, that does not mean that the power structure does not contain that white supremacy ideology, because it does. But what we can take away from this overview of Dr. Wellsing's, we'll call it scientific research, and the lecture, the piece of the lecture that we just watched, is that more than anything else, our entire system in all of those domains are affected by this fear, consciously or subconsciously. Consciously, like I said, reflects in the white supremacy propaganda. Read it. Go on Google. Go to any of these websites. So that's the consciously. But all of these institutions are affected by this internal idea of preserving or conserving this notion of supremacy. And I say notion because it's an idea. It's a notion of supremacy. So, in conclusion, I hope that was something. Like I said, these aren't my ideas, but it is my pleasure to share them with you. So again, hit the like, hit the subscribe. I will try to put out at least 1 or 2 serious lessons a week. I will also do Prof H dailies, where I might throw something up there based on something that I've seen. Understand that all media isn't fake media. All news isn't fake news. A lie is a lie is a lie. It don't matter if it's a brother telling you, it doesn't matter if it's a sister telling you, it doesn't matter who's telling you. A lie is a lie. And if a person can't back up their ideas with 2 or 3 independent resources, then you should disregard it completely. If a person's spitting out ideas that are rumors, ideas that are conspiracies, or ideas that are just their ideas, disregard it. I will promise you that I will always spit facts, and I will always prove the facts that I spit. So if you like this channel, check us again. Peace.